day. Danielle and I are on our way up to Lewistown today for Lincoln Reagan Day up there, and I was saying the other thing we're getting to do is Miles City kid for high school, so I used to get up here for Legion Ball and you get up to Lewistown for football and basketball. But I got up there more often running Boys and Girls Ranch Foundation. We down there in between Billings and Laurel, we work with about 600 emotionally troubled kids a day, and we had a lot of folks in the farm and ranch community who supported the ranch. So folks would donate a calf or otherwise be generous. So that'd get me up to Lewistown and get me up here, mostly getting out and touching base with some of our ranch friends. Anyway, my background, so Montana native, was born in Great Falls, and then my dad was a math teacher, and my mom was an elementary school teacher, and we moved down to Dillon and then over to Victor and Helena, and then we ended up in Miles City where Dad was principal of Pine Hills, and that's where I graduated high school. After
Pine Hills or the other?
See how I glossed that right over, but you caught me. No, I never got in. I got threatened a few times, but I never ended up attending. And then left Montana to go to University of Colorado for a degree in business. I was there during the Bill McCartney Promise Keepers era. That was a good time to be in Colorado. And then became a CPA, and then went off to Boston to go to Harvard Law School for law school, and in spite of being there, was able to come back with my Christian faith and conservative values intact. In fact, I'd say maybe even strengthened because we had to defend them so often. And then came back here, and since I've been here, I've been a prosecutor, I've been in public service, and been in the nonprofit community most of my whole career. My wife and I, Sandra, have been married for maybe 32 years this year, and we got two grown kids now that we raised down in Billings, and our son has come back now, and after going to medical school, is going to be a hospitalist at the clinic. So if you're down getting doctoring and you're in the Billings clinic, you might run into my son. We lost my daughter though. She went to Boston and went to Notre Dame and met a good boy, a good Irish Catholic boy, literally from Ireland, Catholic boy. And so they work in Price Waterhouse in Boston, so I'm not sure we're going to get her back. When I came back, I clerked for Judge Charles Lovell. He was a Reagan appointee in Helena. Did that for a couple of years, and then again, just started in a career in public service. One thing I wanted to cover is how I got into the race. Obviously there was so much surprise about what Senator Daines did. So I wanted to share with you all what happened from my perspective. So I was minding my own business as the U.S. Attorney with a full-time job doing that for the state. And just a few days before the filing deadline, I get a call from the Senator. And he says, Cindy and I are thinking about retiring, but we're really concerned about holding the seat and holding the Senate. After, we worked so hard in 24 to get it flipped, he didn't want to contribute to losing it. So he said, I'm only going to step down if I can find someone like you who will step up and run. So, after Sandra and I picked ourselves up off the floor, surprise of that, we said, all right, we know we need to hold the Senate, and we'll step up and do it. If you decide to retire, we're interested in stepping up. And so next thing I heard from him was, I heard from him the morning of the filing deadline, and he said, okay, I'm going to retire and withdraw if you'll step up. And so I went back down to the office and called the Department of Justice and told them I'm resigning, and then I went home and filed. And here we are off and running. We got the President's support, and we are just going full steam from now until November to do everything we can to try to hold this seat and be sure that works. Now, I think you may have already heard from the Senator why he did it. So he came out right away and he said the reason that he did what he did is he wanted to discourage John Tester and Steve Bullock from entering the race. So that's why he waited till the last day to keep this thing from being a $200 million race and maybe losing the seat. So that's why I did it, for right or wrong. It's not the way I would have wanted to come into the race, but that's the way she happened. So now we're like I said, we're going full steam, and we're going to do everything we can to go out and travel around the state and earn people's votes, and see if we can't keep the seats for the Republicans. So why are we doing it? I'm 59 years old. Sandra and I had another job. The reason we're doing it is it's all about public service. Montana's my home, like it is most of you. I've spent my career doing public service work, and so we just saw this as a chance to step up and try to serve the state again, and that's what we're going to try to do. Things we're going to focus on, and that's still being defined by meetings like this and from hearing people around the state as to what things are important to everyone. But things we're focusing on right now are affordability, making Montana affordable for Montanans, trying to be sure we have public safety, make our community safer, and then protect our Montana way of life. And I got some background in all three of those areas. On the affordability side, I was budget director and a former director of the Department of Revenue. So we balance budgets, we put money back in people's pockets with tax cuts, and that's how you make, if you put money in people's pockets, that's how you make life affordable. Specifically, I worked for Judy Martz back in her administration. She gave me a call, and I we were in Billings, but we moved up to Helena for her term, and I worked as her director of Department of Revenue, where I ran into then Senator Pattison from the High Line, was in the legislature way back then, so that shows how old you are.
Way older than you.
The main thing we were focusing on was trying to get that big tax rate down. If you remember, we had 11% income tax rate back then. It just screamed, don't come to Montana and bring jobs here because it's too expensive. So we went to work on that and spearheaded that for the governor. And we got that income tax rate cut by almost 45%. We got the capital gains rate cut by almost 55%. And I know the legislature, our Republican legislature now has been going to work on that also to see if we can't chip it down even further. Then, almost 20 years later, we get another Republican governor. And Greg Gianforte gets elected, and President Trump loses, so I'm out of the U.S. Attorney role, and Greg is looking for people who had been in a Republican administration. Well, it's been 16 years, so there weren't many of us, but I was one. So I agreed I'd go back and work with the governor for a year to help him get organized. And so we not only we get the budget balance, but we inherited 16 years of bloated Democrat budgets. And with the help of Barry and our Republican legislators, we were able to cut almost $150 million out of Governor Bullock's budget. And also do about $60 million of annual tax cuts, as well as get us out of debt and tee us up with a good ending fund balance. So that was a real pleasure to get to work with that Republican legislature, which we didn't have the luxury of back in 2001. On the public safety side, as Barry already mentioned, I have previously been the United States Attorney, twice nominated by President Trump, so grateful for his nominations. And we focused a lot on violent crime and drug trafficking on our reservations in Yellowstone County and all our cities. We got the second highest violent crime rate in the Northwest. So we really focused on violent crime. And this last year, we prosecuted more defendants across the state than we prosecuted in over 20 years. People bought in, our prosecutors bought in, and we really went after trying to get that crime rate down. So look forward to trying to work with President Trump to get that again. So much of our public safety issues come from the southern border. It comes from meth and fentanyl coming up into the state, and for drug trafficking organizations that then, get into our communities and bring all that crime with them. So what President Trump has done to secure the border and go after the cartels, I think, is just spot on. And I look forward to getting to do that again. Then the big one is protecting our Montana way of life. I think a lot of us have grown up in this state. I certainly have. Not only grew up all over the state, but worked with people in a lot of different walks of life. Not only was I a prosecutor and had those two state jobs, but also have been involved in our community and in nonprofits, working with seniors and kids, and the poor, and the sick, and the mentally ill. And something about Montana is how we all step up and help each other. And we don't expect the government to be the first line of defense in caring for our neighbors. And I think we still got that going here. And it wraps into, I think, what are three values as I think about Montana that I think we still have here and are worth protecting and are worth coalescing around. First one is our faith. I think in Montana, the thing that's most important to all of us is we get to live our faith and we get to live our conscience with the least amount of government interference as possible.
Amen to that, brother.
And then opportunity. You know, I and probably a lot of you, I grew up lower middle class family, and I've always believed, and I still believe, that if you work hard in this state, there's opportunity, and you can succeed. And the American dream is still possible. And I think that's possible across the country. I think it's definitely still possible in Montana. And I think Montanans believe it. And that's part of it, is because our kids need to believe in that work ethic and grow up with the same work ethic that we all had, especially those of us who grew up in eastern Montana. And then finally, the service point, which I was just making. You know, I remember reading a book back when I was in high school in English class about John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie. And I always remember his paragraph about Montana. If you never read it, you should read it. But he said that Montanans are known for neighborliness. And Montana was his favorite state. And I think that's still true. Again, I think it's this kind of thing that we're doing here today, but I think it's more than that. I think it goes on to service, and that's the point I was trying to make. When I worked at the Boys and Girls Ranch or St. John's with our senior citizens, or at the Montana Rescue Mission, or you know, I used to volunteer my time as a lawyer working for the Mental Health Association. We're the kind of people, I think, who step up and try to help our neighbors, again, without turning to government first. You know, we work together, we work through our organizations, we work with each other, we work one-on-one, and we take care of people ourselves without expanding government to do it unless it's absolutely necessary. So that kind of service value, I think, is still something that we have in Montana that we need to do all we can to protect. Then we get down to policy decisions. I think there's some real common sense policy things that we all need to do. And I think we'd all agree we've got to continue to protect our Second Amendment if we're going to protect our lifestyle. We need to continue to protect public lands and private property. We need to continue to back the blue and law enforcement. This defund the police business that we were seeing over the last 8 years is terrible. Terrible for public safety, and terrible for the morale of the men and women who serve in our law enforcement. We need to secure the border. The President's done a fantastic job of that between the border, between the ports of entry, and we need to keep doing that. And then we need to secure our voting. You know, we've got the Save America Act out there right now in front of Congress. Congress needs to get that thing passed and needs to get it to the President to sign. You know, there's some real concerns about our elections, and if people don't trust our elections are fair, it's going to undermine democracy. So being sure that we figure out a way to do common sense voter ID registration, I think, is critical. So that's some of why I'm running. The campaign's going great so far. We're at day 24.
24, 25.
We're day 24, 25. Yeah, so we're in a sprint.
Something like that.
Yeah, 24, 25. We're sprinting to that finish line. But really, again, grateful for President Trump's endorsement in this race, and also really grateful for the campaign team we've been able to pull together. Danielle's been fantastic, and we're pulling a great team around us who helped defeat Tester, who helped defeat Bullock in the past, and so people who know how to run a Senate race and be sure that we can defeat our opponent. So. Like I said, we're going to, now it's just up to me, and we're going to be wearing out shoe leather all around the state, going to every Lincoln Reagan Day and every county we can get to, and forgive me if I'm a little biased towards eastern Montana, because that's where I'm from, but we're going to be spending a lot of time out in eastern Montana trying to get out and earn people's vote. So how the race is going, you all probably know about as much about it as I do right now, because there's been a lot publicized. We got 11 candidates in the race. We got 5 Democrats. I got 2 primary challengers. We got 2 Libertarians, and then the Democrats are coalescing around an independent, the president of the university, Seth Bodnar, who, you know, I think you all know the story there because it got leaked. But Chuck Schumer and John Tester were trying to recruit Bodnar to run, and I think John Tester's leaked message was, don't run as a Democrat because the Democrat Party is poison to your campaign, quote unquote. So they got some problems to deal with in their own party, but Seth Bodner then has filed as an independent, even though he was a registered Democrat, even though he's recruited by Schumer and Tester, even though his campaign team is made up of all Democrats, and they're raising money through Act Blue, which leverages all the small Democrat donors across the country. And he raised $550,000 in the first 2 days. So clearly that's where the Democrats are putting their chips right now, is in this independent, kind of like they did in Nebraska 2 years ago, where they take a Democrat, run them as an independent because they know they can't win as a Democrat. So we're going to be taking everybody seriously. We're going to take the primary seriously and our primary opponents, and we're going to certainly take him seriously, but we're also going to do our best to be sure Montanans know what they're voting for, because we got a Democrat marauding as an independent. Where meanwhile, I am proud to be a Republican. I am proud to be associated with President Trump. I want people to know what I believe, and I like the Republican label. So we're going to be running hard right into our Republican Party and what President Trump has done, and keep Montana first and America first, just like he's trying to do. So with that, just let me tell you how grateful I am and honored that you all would take time out on a Palm Sunday to come and have breakfast with us. And Barry, Jeff, thank you guys for joining too. Appreciate it. And Greg, thank you. And happy to just now visit and do some listening about what you guys think, what we all think are some of the main issues going on here, and any advice you might have for us. And then we're going to just keep running hard today and the rest of the way, all the way until the primary. And if we're blessed to go beyond that, we're going to push all the way to November. So thank you.